Welcome aboard. This is the For Listeners program. Appreciate you guys giving us a download and giving a listen to us this week. We very much appreciate it. What up, everybody? I'm Spear. Alongside me, as usual, I have the illustrious Corey G. What up, Corey?
What's up?
Zeth is on assignment this week, probably hunting down Afghans in the desert or something. So, sitting in this week, we have a good buddy of mine, the Jim. What's up, Jimmy?
How's it going? Not much, usual.
Usual. Really happy to have you aboard. This is going to be fun. This is going to be a good time. So, this week, something must be done about the Lost finale. So, spoiler alert, for anybody who hasn't seen the show or who hasn't watched the finale, go away, watch it, and then come back. We'll be here when you get back. Okay, so if you're still here... Lost was kind of a phenomenon very much from the get-go. It was... That first episode was probably one of the best hours of television I've ever seen. So, right from that first episode where Charlie says, guys, where are we? It first started to establish the mysteries that the show started to build upon. And then it went from mysteries to building up a mythology almost, where each mystery led to another mystery, led to another. You got one clue to the puzzle, and it opened up 4 more clues to the puzzle, and it kind of drove the way you watched a show. It's ultimately rewatchable on DVD or Blu-ray or what have you because of the things that you pick up as you go along. So there were a lot of people that enjoyed the show for that.
But ironically, that also got them in trouble.
But there were 2 reasons. There were 2 reasons to watch the show, right? There was the mysteries and the mythology around the show. The Dharma Initiative, the Man in Black or the Smoke Monster, the others, how the electromagnetic thing or whatever was going on the island. Once the island started moving through time, there were a lot of, interesting things about the show that kind of drove the mysteries. But there were also some really good characters, right? So it was still a character-driven piece, and you got invested in those characters. There was Jack and Kate. And my favorites were Hurley and Sawyer, and you ended up becoming very much invested in these characters. So,
so you appealed to both. You had the character-driven audience, which is typically mainly your females will be more into a character-driven story.
You're calling me a female?
No, I said mainly. I mean, character. You have to have good characters to have a good story.
Right. So when we get to the finale. The interesting thing about the finale is it was different things for different people, right? If you were in the one camp where you were very much invested in the characters, the show gave you a good amount of resolution for the characters, especially Jack, right? With his kind of coming to grips with who he was and that whole coming to grips with his father and coming to grips with getting past trying to have to fix everything. Seeing his father, resolving everything. I thought there was a good resolution for all the characters, and everyone had their nice little happy ending, right? Juliet got back with Sawyer, Kate and Jack, Jin and Sun, right? There was a lot of good things that happened to all the characters. Everyone had their own little thing, and it was all about love, right? Love brings everyone together. It was nice. It was neat. But
it neglected the whole point of the story.
Which was what though? I mean, here's where we get into it, right? What did it neglect? I mean, there were going to be things that they just could not answer. That there was just not enough time.
To me, I like the story. The story was great up until that last episode. Well, the 3rd season was a kind of a blip.
Right.
One good episode in the 3rd season, the Mr. Echo episode.
Yeah. That
was a good episode. But other than that, the 3rd season was crap. And again. They got into trouble because of all the things they were trying to keep this mystery about all these things, and they didn't know where to go with that, which is why after the 3rd season, right, I believe is when they signed that contract that said, all right, the show's going to end, we're going to clean it up, and we're going to head down a definite path.
Right, leaving some things in their wake, things that were just not going to get addressed.
Right, and that's fine. But you had this wonderful piece of, it started out as, suspense, drama, and you're following it along, and eventually it's this nice piece of science fiction. You have all these great things going on, and to end the series with everybody's in heaven is just you just sold out all the science fiction. You sold it out in the last episode.
So you sold out the science fiction aspects of it.
You sold out every major plot you had going. Every major plot.
Well, hang on. They actually did solve the plot of why the island was important. They actually did say that.
Okay, and now you tell me that is without sounding stupid, because there's a little mystical ball of energy on the island. That's why it was important.
Well, there's a mystical ball of energy on the island that controls the flow of good and evil. The whole thing was
now that's you interpreting, right? There was no good or evil, right?
Well,
it was indifferent.
Well, that's the beauty of Lost, right? Is that it is so open to interpretation. I think it would have hurt the show if they did try to tidy up some of the science fiction aspects of it, because that's what makes that show.
You had to me the best plot line you had going in that show was Desmond. Right.
Desmond was one of the cooler characters, right? And his ability to withstand the electromagnetic radiation was.
But that wasn't even his main thing. The thing about Desmond was the rules didn't apply to Desmond. Remember that?
Yes.
That was the thing about Desmond, and they never really used that anywhere.
Right, and it was mostly evident in probably the best episode that they put out was The Constant, where Desmond was able to kind of bridge the gap between the island world and what was going on in the past. He was able to kind of slip back and forth, and that was really when Lost kind of let its freak flag fly, right, where people were really starting to get into the whole science fiction aspect of it.
Well, that's when it became time, space, and relativity. It was fantastic,
right?
And they started off. Desmond could see the future. He could change the future. He could see the future.
The visions that he had with Charlie and trying to stop Charlie from doing certain things, because he would have visions of Charlie dying, and he was trying to stop his buddy from getting killed.
Correct. And then he was trying to help everybody get off the island. But to me, that was the best thing. The rules don't apply to you. How are they going to use that? And when they got to the end and they never really used it, they wrapped it up as the rules of time and relativity don't apply to you. They wrapped it up as you can withstand an electromagnetic blast. That's a cop-out. You took a great plot, a great story point, and you just said, you know what? We're going to make that just you could extend some electricity. There you go. Yeah,
and you can argue that they let that whole time travel thing kind of go completely to waste, because they completely left open the whole Eloise Hawking thing. Why? How did she get off the island? Why was she maintaining that station where they had that pendulum?
And this is where my big problem with the finale comes in, right? They tried to wrap it up. They tried to tidy it all up, and they said they had her as she knew they were in whatever that was supposed to be purgatory or whatever that was supposed to be, before they realized they were dead and all moving on, right? So purgatory unless you have a different take on that.
No, for that was, I think that was the way they left it off, was they had created that world for themselves so that they could all find each other in death before they all moved on.
Right. So now Eloise goes from this character who was started on the island. Now she's on the mainland. She knows what's going on with the island. But now all of a sudden it's, now I'm in purgatory and I know. And I'm trying to make sure you guys know at the right time. Well, how? Why? She wasn't important to anybody except for Faraday.
And Desmond, because if you remember when Desmond first started kind of traveling back and forth through time, Eloise was kind of his Obi-Wan or his Yoda.
Right.
But first explained to him that strange things were afoot and that he was very important. And it turned out that he was very important.
They just wrapped it together. They said, now we'll just throw her there and she knows. But yeah, it goes back to that storyline they didn't use. They didn't use it. But they tried to wrap it up. So to me, it's like, that last episode was like, we have 2 hours. Let's involve all the characters and tie it together in a nice, neat little package. In my opinion, I felt that the ending was a cop-out to a lot of the things that they had set up. They had all this great stuff going, and all of a sudden it's like, heaven, ha, ha, ha.
To me, the fact that they didn't wrap everything up in a neat bow, all of those mysteries, all of that mythology, all of the richness of the show, only lends itself to discussion. Right, like the X-Files, right? The X-Files is a show that you can discuss endlessly because of the mythology that's there, right? Had you answered everything, you may have had arguments with why things ended the way they did, right? Or why certain mysteries were solved the way they were, because they didn't kind of live up to the expectation that you had about how things should have been solved. This
Look,
is why
I'm a consumer. I'm watching a story. You know what? You pay for a movie. Don't you want an ending? I want an ending. I want you to tell me the story that you had in mind. You know what? Don't leave. At least cover the major ones. The major ones. They didn't even cover the major ones.
this is exactly what David Chase did with The Sopranos, right? As long as we're talking about finales, it's and finales that drove everyone crazy. The Sopranos was right up there, right?
Where, didn't have a big problem with that.
See, I did, because
it's pretty obvious.
They kind of dropped you on your head. There were things that they did to tie up the story where Tony's kind of at odds with the New York crew. People are getting shot and killed. I thought it was a relatively, leading up to that very last moment, I thought it was good, until they got up to that last moment and Chase just kind of drops you on your head.
Well, he did business as usual. Look, it's the end, business as usual. Which, I mean, it's not the best thing. I mean, I thought that show should have ended. You know, they did all that great foreshadowing in the first couple seasons. The only way it ends for a guy like me is dead or in jail.
Exactly.
And that's how they should end it.
Exactly, right? So Chase did exactly that. He's like, look, no ending I come up with is going to live up to your expectations. Nothing I come up with is going to live up to your expectations, because you already have this built up after watching the show or whatever else. So he basically just says, you know what? You're done. You don't get to watch anymore. Your window to the Sopranos family is now closed. And it's closed on my terms. And ultimately, I think that's a big FU to fans. Because if you sat there and you watched that show for 5 or 6 seasons, or however many seasons, whether it was 6 seasons, right? That last season was a little
well,
longer.
it was 6-1 and 6-2, right?
Yeah.
6A, 6B.
Right.
They did
so,
it.
yeah. But if you watched for all 6 seasons, you got invested in those characters, and you wanted to see resolution of those characters that was reasonable, right? Or at least lived up to some part of your expectations. And Chase just gave a giant fuck you to everybody, and just closed the door, closed the window. That's it. Not even fade to black. Hard smash to black. You're done. I swear to God, I thought my cable went out.
Didn't bother me. Didn't bother me as much.
Bothers the crap out of me. To me, that was a cop out, right? You want to talk about cop outs? That was the cop out. You could have done something that you had all this foreshadowing that left up to it. You could have done something that lived up to that, but instead you dropped us all on our heads and you went, fuck you.
Well, I mean, if you looked at the cast of characters in that diner, it was all people that Tony had run-ins with, right? Or they were similar to people that Tony had run-ins with.
Right.
So he could have been saying, look, it's not going to end good for him when it ends.
Agreed. But like Lost, where you had expectations on how things were going to be resolved. They took the cop out and they dropped you on your head. I mean, there have been examples of this with series finales across the board. St. Elsewhere ended with a dream. It was basically the whole series was a dream sequence for a boy who was looking at a snow globe. Now that's a cop out. I mean, if you're going to get invested in the characters, and St. Elsewhere had some good ones and had some really good actors too. You want more than just saying the whole thing was a figment of some kid's imagination, right?
Okay. Wait. You ready? You ready? Best ending of any show, drama or comedy. I'm thinking more along the lines of comedy. You have to know it.
Best ending?
Best ending of any show.
Please tell me.
Newhart.
Yes, you are correct.
Winner.
Newhart. That was the best ending.
The second show, right, where he wakes up next to
where
he wakes up next to his wife.
From the Bob Newhart show, yeah.
Right. So again, a little bit of a cop out with the whole dream thing, but genius, right?
It was hilarious.
Right.
So, all right. In closing, the finale lost ruined the whole goddamn show.
All right. So this is where Jimmy and I disagree, right? The lost finale, depending on how you want to look at it, was either a giant cop out or it gave you some closure on the characters. plenty of other finales have dropped us on the head like that. The Sopranos comes to mind. If you're listening and you have an opinion on a finale that was either good or not, check us out on Facebook, facebook.com/4listeners or 4listeners.com. Please make sure to set your subscriptions on your iTunes to get our weekly shows. Jimmy, thanks for being a part of the show this week. Nice having you
welcome.
aboard.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks, everybody. Check us out on Facebook and on iTunes, and we'll catch you next week. Thanks a bunch.